everyone, welcome to Blooms and Brushstrokes. This is my watercolor painting channel and I am a self-taught watercolor amateur artist. That's how I'll describe myself. Anyways, I put a poll out on my social media asking people, first of all, I've had a lot of people asking me if I would teach them my watercolor painting style, and I am super flattered by that. I think one of the biggest things with art is that you find your own style, but in learning from somebody else, you can often develop your own style. So I've had lots of people asking, so I thought I would put a poll out on my Instagram and Facebook story and ask what way people would prefer to learn. And number one was YouTube and number two was in person. So that's pretty cool. But YouTube is awesome because I'm able to share my experiences and my watercolor hobby with a larger audience than I could if I was just doing it, say, in person in my hometown or in Regina or wherever. So anyways, I decided I'm going to start this channel. I've done an introductory video. Now I am going to start. I've kind of laid it out. I thought, what's the best way to go about doing this? And I think I'm going to do it in lessons. That way, if anybody wants to go back, or if you're just new to my channel and you're like, what is happening here? You can go back to lesson 1 and 2 and so forth and get the gist of what is going on in my videos by following along that way. And it doesn't matter when you hop in on my YouTube channel, you can always go back if you're missing something. And then that way there's a starting point and then there'll be a progression as to how we go. So it's kind of like free lessons. But the reality is that I am self-taught. I am not well, I have a little bit of university under my belt, but it's not really in technical watercolor painting. So that being said, I know most of the people that had commented are people that just like really want to get in there and get to it. So we're going to do that starting today. So I guess my very first thing and the basics of anything is like color theory. And so I'm not going to go crazy about it, but I just like wanted to bring up my pocket color wheel. As you can see, it's just traveled around with me. It's been used. If you guys have one, this is really awesome to have just to help you with color. But I've been doing art for so long that I don't particularly need this anymore. But if you're new at art and you want to understand a bit about color theory and a bit more and delve into that and understand how color works, if you're very, very, very beginner into art, you may want to grab one of these yourself, or you can even make one yourself. So you can just start. And I mean, so we're just going to touch base on the basics. I have a bit of a stuffy nose here right now, so I apologize, you guys. I might have to use a Kleenex from time to time, as in right now. Hey, it is not your art class. Okay, come on. Okay, so just to start with, the very basic beginning of it is we just need to understand what our primary colors are and our secondary colors are. That's a good base. And so who knows what the primary colors are? Well, our basics, red, blue, and yellow. Those are our primary colors. And then our secondary colors are, they are I just want to look and see where I'm at. Okay, so we're like the exact opposite. So we have, we'll start with our red, and the exact opposite of red is green. And then blue, and our exact opposite is orange. And then yellow, our exact opposite is violet. So those are our secondary colors. Those are the most important colors to know. So if you ever need to understand just like a little bit of basic, like that's why I think one of these is handy, so I don't have to go over a lot. But, so basically if you mix, then you have your tertiary colors, which we're not doing all that. But if you mix your red and your orange together, you get red orange. You mix your orange and your yellow together, you get yellow orange. You mix your yellow and your green together, you get yellow green. You mix your blue and your orange together, you neutralize, and then you get a brown. If you mix your red and your green together, you neutralize. I use this every single day in what I do. I'm a hairstylist by trade, and I own a hair salon. And so I use this color wheel every single day of my life. I use Aveda color. And so Aveda is just like it's just like a color wheel. We just get like yellow, green, we get that. And then we get like base color. So every single day I use this. It is like ingrained in my brain. But anyway, so it's handy to know, but for just us starting out, it doesn't really matter. But this is something I would say, grab it. If you ever want to like just have it in your arsenal of things that you have, just grab it. Okay, so, and a fun little exercise you could do is like paint this out. So that's something you could do on your own free time, is just draw a circle and then paint out the colors, red, green, like, orange, blue, like you do all these colors in fact, and just paint them out. And so you have an idea of what it's like, and mixing color and stuff like that. I think that will be very helpful to you. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. There's probably a gajillion color theory courses on YouTube. What I just want to get to with you guys is just understanding how the color works and the different, sorry, I just want to make sure I stay on track because I am quick to fall off track. Anyway, so basically I just wanted to touch base with the color theory on that a little bit. There's a lot of, you can dive very deep into that, and that's all fine. But yeah, if you guys want to, you guys can build a color wheel and just do that for fun. But we're just gonna play around a little bit with the mixing of the colors and just the different types of, watercolor application, I guess we could say. So what I'm gonna get everybody to do is grab a pencil. I guess just to start off with, before we got that going on, if you're going to join along in this, you are going to need a few supplies. Your color wheel if you want, some water, some paper towel, your brushes, your watercolor paper. I am just using, you guys, this book. For this whole thing, I'm just going to use this Canson watercolor book. It's a 7x10. 140 pound cold press. That's what I'm using. This will be just fine for what we're doing here. You got your watercolor paints. Oh shoot. And these ones are the, I'm just using, I have two different sets. The Yarka St. Petersburg watercolor, the Jack Richesons. That's what I'm using. The other ones I have, they're in my bag. It doesn't matter. Anyways, and so you're going to want to get a pencil and an eraser. The key to this is to just don't draw too heavy. Just do a lighter line so you can see it. And so we're just going to play around with some basic shapes, and we're going to start with a leaf, and everybody does their leaves differently. So we're just going to start with the shape of a leaf. So what I want you guys to do is to draw a leaf. So I'm just going to move my camera here quickly. Let's adjust it up. This might be okay. I might have to change it all around, but I just want this to be as real as possible. So anyways, I'm just going to draw a regular shape of a leaf, and it doesn't need to be very big because we're going to draw a few to do a couple different techniques here. And we're just going to start off with the basics so we can understand what water and color on the brush is like. So we're just going to start with a standard leaf shape. And you may get to the point where you don't even need to draw. I always like to outline what I'm doing because it keeps me on track. I can easily get distracted in a painting, and then the next thing you know, all I have is a big mess. So we're gonna do one of those, and then we'll do a long one. And And let's do one with some jagged edges. A little bit more texture. But again, keeping these simple. This is not the right pencil for this. I grabbed the wrong one. If you have a set of pencils, it would be the 2H. It's the lightest one that you can get. I have these, and that's kind of what I roll with. I hardly use any of them, but I've had them since I was in art school, I think. So whatever. Okay. So what I really want to touch base on is a couple techniques that we do in watercolor painting, and we're going to do that by mixing some of these colors together just for fun. And we're not going to just stick with the color of the leaf, just sticking with the shape of it, because what I do a lot of is botanical style. So that's a 10. Let's go with a number 6. Okay, so I'm using a number 6 round. I was gifted this paintbrush and I absolutely love it, and it is amazing. So the very first thing that we're going to do is wet on dry. So wet on dry is applying wet paint onto dry paper. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to start with our, we're going to paint half this leaf in red. So find your red. I don't know if you guys can see. That's probably a red orange. We're going to go with this, and they're all probably pre-mixed. So just find something that looks the closest to a truest red, like a cherry red, apple red, whatever. And load up your brush pretty good with water and mix it up and get, that's the other thing too, and I don't think I have it here anymore. To get your watercolor paints going, you can give the whole thing a spritz off the get-go, or you can do what I'm doing and just getting your pan or your tube, whatever you're using, get it wet. I would say start with a pan, it's easiest, and get that all moist and get it activated. Okay, so as you can see, my paintbrush is loaded up pretty good, which is fine enough for what we're doing. And we're just gonna paint half of our first leaf. This is called wet on dry, you guys. So we're just gonna paint that full. And so I'm starting from the bottom and working my way up to the top. As you can see, you can already start to see how that color is moving. And you can see, so I've filled it in. We are basic, bare bones basic here, you guys. So we're just doing that. So number 1, we want to do red there. Okay, now we want to clean our brush off really good. Oh, not you. Okay, so next up, we are going to do another primary color, and we're going to go try to find our bluest blue that we can find. This one looks pretty good to me. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to get the whole thing soaking wet. Again, let that activate, and then you want to get your brush all covered. And we're just strictly working on wet so you guys can understand. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And even though that your paint is not dried, that's totally fine. I want you guys to see what's going to happen when we get this side down. So I'm going to start by painting the outside, just so we don't have chaos happening right away as soon as and so same thing. I don't love this blue, but that's okay. I'm going to go up to the top, and you can see they're melding into each other, and that's fine. That's the beauty of watercolor. And okay, and our last one, and we are going to go up there. You can see the color itself starting to blend into each other. Like you can start to see them, what they call blooming into the other colors and running, and that's all fine. And you just see as you go up, you can see how you drag that watercolor up. It can leave like a little dot of color. It gets lighter as you go, depending on how much color you have on your brush. So just so you can see, that would be wet on dry. That technique is wet on dry. And I just want you to see so you can understand that. Okay, so next up we have our next leaf. And so we are going to paint, hey, dude, why are you in the video? Oops, sorry. The challenges of having a cat. Okay, so we're gonna still continue to work with a wet on dry, because that's, I mean, we can start doing a whole bunch of things, but it's gonna be crazy. So now we're gonna go and grab a yellow This is a true yellow. I mean, my paints are a big mess, but find your truest yellow you can find that's just yellow. That doesn't have any orange in it. That doesn't have any green in it. Just a true yellow. Okay, we got that wet. And we're going to paint half of our next one. Half of our next leaf. Again, wet on dry. And we're just doing half of it. Same way. I like to go that way. Some people will do the opposite, and it depends on what you're painting and it depends on how you're painting, but you can bring it down like so, which some people will do, you know, just and you can also paint upwards. If you want to drag color away from the bottom, you can do that by painting up. If you want to pull color down, you can pull it down. But this is getting way too technical. All I want to do is just play with a little bit of color and then just a little bit of like what it's like to do wet on dry. That's my very first number one. And then I want you guys to go and play around, and which I would highly recommend is by doing your color wheel very first. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow in this one. Just a little bit more. And you don't have to stay in the lines, whatever. My technique is this is not really my style. We're just playing with color and the technique at this point in time. We will get there. It's coming. And we'll try to get there quickly. But for now, I just want to touch base. Okay, so now we got that. So now we're going to go into our secondary color. So across from yellow, we have violet. And so I'm just going to get in here and wet down my violet. I should find that's a good one. I should find my spray bottle. I think I took it to the farm and left it there. I'm not super prepared, but. Okay, so our next color is violet, which is our secondary color. So now we have our primary colors, red, blue, yellow, and our secondary colors, we're going into purple, which purple is a mix, or violet is a mix of the blue and the red together. But I'm just, you know what? Let's do that actually. Let's mix our red and our blue together to get violet. This blue isn't lovely. I don't love it for a color, but that's okay. And I used a ton of red, so now we're gonna need a ton of blue. That's okay. I don't love that. That's fine. Okay. So to make violet, you want to take like equal parts red and equal parts blue and mix them together, and that's how you're gonna get your violet. But ew. That's okay. That's an interesting violet. And it's probably because I have a lot of other colors going on. But it's violet nonetheless. It's definitely no violet that I was mixing up. And that's the thing. On your paint pans, you will likely have, like if you order a cheap set, you're going to have like a lot of different colors. But look at this violet compared. It's just this like nice, beautiful violet. And the one I made is a little bit muddy looking, but that's probably because I have a bunch of different colors going on in that red, and that is totally fine. So a couple things you can see that my yellow was already pretty dry, so there wasn't a ton of bleeding in that, but you can see here there's like a little bit of bleeding into this purple one. So we've done that. So that's all fine and dandy. So next we have our blue. We're going to mix our blue and our yellow together. Oh, my water's already disgusting, but that's okay. I'm going to take yellow up here. And then of course my blue has now got red in it. That's fine. We're going to mix them together and we're going to get a green. Yeah, that's going to cause some grief. That's okay. Ooh, that's going to be an interesting color. Okay, that's cool. But anyways, that's what's going to happen. So we're just going to have fun with it. So then this is the green that I got. It's just the blue. It's kind of interesting. The blue that I used to begin with. Anyway, so there's my green. And it's maybe not your true green. You could probably go on your palette here and find a nice true green, which I think is this one here. No, this one's probably a little bit more. No. hard to say. There's this one. That's on my palette. Okay, and so our very last one that we're gonna do is our yellow and our red. I'm just gonna do this. Ooh, bad news. That's okay. And we're gonna mix equal parts yellow and red together, and we're gonna get orange. And we're gonna put that down there. And just fill in your next leaf. And you can see I've got color bleeding together, and that's all good and that's all fine. And then there you go. You have your primary, your secondary. So that, you guys, is the very first and foremost. And so for fun, just go play around with that. That's my 2 cents with just this. Is like, just understand like what it's like to have, you know, a bunch of paint on your brush on just plain paper, just whatever, and just play around with those shapes. So dragging it down, pulling it up, just play around a bit for that. How, if you pull your, and then you push down, and then you lift up, and you start soft and you push down and you lift up, like that gives you another whole shape. Ooh, that is an awful color. So just play around a little bit. I would say with your very first thing to do is just draw some shapes of some leaves or whatever. You don't have to. You can just play around and just play with what it feels like. The pressure you're putting on your paintbrush, and the amount of color you have on your paintbrush. Just start with all of that. I mean, there's a good jillion styles of leaves, so we got and you can just see what the pressure of the paintbrush is like. I'm not gonna go crazy about this, but you understand. Now you can kind of see what happens. And I mean, this isn't the best watercolor paper, and these aren't the best watercolor paints. We're just learning, you guys. And I mean, I still just use these paints. I have one other set that I use, and they're not high-end professional. They're just fun and something fun to have, to enjoy a hobby with. So don't get too overworked. I know there's people out there that cannot do a hobby unless you have the best of the best. And sometimes I find myself thinking the same thing. Like sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I should go order those paints. When in reality, it's like, I can't afford them, And so I don't get too crazy about it. You can do a simple leaf just like that. And I mean, you can use bigger brushes if you have bigger ones. This is the number 10 round. And you can, again, just put your paintbrush down. Soft, soft, soft. Pressure, 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 pressure. Watch it fan out and lift up. Simple, basic leaf. Beautiful. Like this is gorgeous to me. This is something I would absolutely work with. And just play around with that. And have fun. So you guys, I'm just gonna do. Absolutely, very first, just understand your colors, your primary and your secondaries, because from there we got a whole world of beautiful colors. Grab yourself one of these if you don't have one, a color wheel, if you don't have one, and then just spend a little bit of time playing around with the color. I promise you guys. Oh, that was kind of fun because half my paintbrush didn't have color on it. That's another technique we'll get to, but. Drag, 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 drag. And soft. You can do amazing things. You can do amazing things with watercolor and end paper. So that, you guys, is going to wrap up lesson number 1 for me. Okay, so that is going to wrap up lesson number 1 for me. I'm going to make a little mark on here. Just the absolute very basics. Your take homes from this is just to play around with watercolor. You know, if you are somebody that already paints a lot, you're going to understand this already. So it's not necessarily something you're going to have a ton of fun doing. You might want to catch up with me in a few more episodes. But for us that are just starting out, just this is it. Just get yourself your materials, get your paints, paint brushes, paper towel, and some water, and your little dabby paper that you can mess around on, and just start practicing out with that. And then just the one other thing I want to say too is you don't always have to keep your colors apart from each other. Play around with what it's like to add color into another color that's still wet. Like, play around with that and see how that is too. Okay, anyways, that's gonna do it for me, you guys. That's lesson number 1, and that would be your wet on dry technique and your primary and secondary colors. So have a little bit of fun with that, and don't overthink it, and just play around on one piece of paper. Don't even get crazy. Just take one piece of paper and just play around on it until it's full or whatever, till you feel satisfied. And then that's lesson 1, and we're done with that, and we're moving on to lesson number 2. So we'll check you guys in the next video. Oh, and here's the other thing. Before I say goodbye, all the things you have to remember when you're doing YouTube, but if you guys like my channel and if you guys like the video, please go and give it a thumbs up, because that's going to help other people to see my videos and to get access to them. So please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe, or you haven't subscribed, or you'd like to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button, because if you do that, then you're always going to get notified when a new video comes up. And my goal for you guys is that I'm going to have a new video every week for all of us to join in on and have fun painting. And right now, some of these videos may be a little bit boring for the painters out there, but I know if we don't touch base on a few basics, it could probably be a little bit overwhelming. So I want to just touch base and make sure that we have a little bit of a foundation before we move on to our next video. So again, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. And please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. And we'll check you guys in episode and lesson number 2.